The unexpected encounter of the sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the peaceful village. The air was cool, the sounds of birds singing faded into the distant hills, and everything seemed to be in perfect harmony. Jack, a farmer in his mid-30s, stood on his porch, looking over his fields. The land had been kind to him, giving him good crops for years, and he was grateful. But that evening, something was different. He couldn't put his finger on it, but there was an uneasy feeling in the air, like the calm before a storm. As the evening deepened, Jack noticed a figure walking towards his farm. She was tall, cloaked in a strange fabric that shimmered under the setting sun. Her skin had an unusual, almost glowing hue, and her movements were graceful, almost too fluid for a human. At first, Jack thought she might be a traveler passing through, but something about her presence made him hesitate. Her eyes, dark and unreadable, seemed to study the land around her as she approached. She stopped just at the edge of Jack's field. He stared at her, unsure of what to do. He had never seen anyone like her before. Her face held an expression of sadness, yet there was a sense of urgency in the way she carried herself. Jack slowly walked toward her, his boots crunching on the gravel road. "Can I help you?" Jack asked, his voice cautious but polite. The woman nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving his eyes. "I need your help," she said, her voice soft but firm. "My children are hungry, and I have nowhere to go. I heard you have food here. I will work your fields if you feed us." Jack blinked, taken aback. "Feed you," he repeated. "You want me to feed you and your children. But ... who are you?" "My name is Lyra," she replied, her tone still calm. "I am not from here. I come from far away, from a place you wouldn't understand. My children and I have been wandering for a long time, seeking safety. We are lost." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about her words that didn't sit right with him. He couldn't explain it, but his instincts told him that there was more to this woman's story than she was letting on. Still, she didn't seem dangerous, just desperate. Jack had always been a kind man, always willing to help those in need. He thought about his own family, how they had always shared their food with neighbors and travelers. "All right," he said after a moment of hesitation. "I can give you some food for your children, but I don't know about the work. This land is mine, and it's hard to trust strangers." Lyra's expression softened, and for the first time, Jack saw a flicker of emotion in her eyes, relief, perhaps, or gratitude. "I understand your caution," she said, "but I promise I will work hard. My children need food. Please, let me help you." Jack looked at the woman and then at the fields. The crops were ripe for harvesting, and it would be a long task to gather them alone. He considered the offer. She didn't seem to pose any immediate threat, and he could always ask questions later. After all, a hard worker was always welcome, especially one who could help with the harvest. "All right," Jack said finally. "You can work the fields, but I'll need to see how you work first." Lyra nodded, and without another word, she began walking toward the far side of the field. Jack watched her carefully as she moved. There was something oddly familiar about her movements, but he couldn't quite place it. She worked tirelessly, moving with such speed and precision that Jack's eyes widened in surprise. She didn't seem like a typical farmhand. It was as if she knew exactly how to harvest, like she had done it 1,000 times before. The hours passed, and Jack continued to watch her from a distance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he began to feel a strange sense of unease. The work was getting done faster than he had ever seen before, But something about Lyra's work was too perfect. She didn't stop to rest, didn't break a sweat. It was almost as if the land itself was responding to her, as if she had some sort of connection to it that Jack couldn't understand. He decided to approach her again, hoping to learn more about this mysterious woman. "How is it that you can work so quickly?" Jack asked, trying to mask his curiosity with a casual tone. "I've been farming for years, and I've never seen anyone work like this." Lyra paused for a moment, her hands stilling as she looked at Jack. "There is much you don't understand, Jack," she said quietly. "But everything in time. For now, you've done the right thing. You've helped me and my children. That is all that matters." Jack wasn't sure what to make of her words, but before he could ask anything more, he heard a sound rustling from the trees at the edge of the field. He turned, and there, standing just beyond the trees, were two children. They were watching him with wide eyes. Their faces were pale, almost ghostly, and they were barefoot, their clothes torn and dirty. But it wasn't their appearance that made Jack shiver, it was the way they moved. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Lyra must have noticed his sudden hesitation, because she stepped in front of him, blocking his view of the children. "They are my children," she said softly, almost protectively. "They need food, Jack. That is all I ask." But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As he looked at Lyra, something deep inside him told him that this encounter was only the beginning of something much bigger and much more dangerous than he could ever imagine. Strange visitors. The morning after Lyra's arrival, the sun rose with an eerie stillness. The village, which had always been full of life and sound, now felt unusually quiet. Jack stood on his porch, staring out at the fields. The crops were thriving like never before. He had never seen such rapid growth, almost as if the land itself had awakened from a long sleep. Jack turned his attention to the strange woman, who was already working in the field. She moved like a shadow, swift and silent, and it was hard to take his eyes off her. He had promised to help, but something about the speed with which she worked unnerved him. The land responded to her, but it felt as if it wasn't just the land, it was something deeper, something he couldn't understand. That's when he noticed the children again. They were standing at the edge of the field, not far from where Lyra was working. Jack hadn't seen them move, but there they were, watching him with eyes that seemed too old for their young faces. Their skin was pale, but their eyes were different. They glowed faintly, like stars shining just before dawn. Jack hesitated. He had seen children before, of course, but these children weren't like any he had ever seen. There was something unsettling about them. They didn't move like normal children, they didn't run or play. Instead, they stood there, still and silent, their eyes locked onto him. He could feel their gaze, heavy and unblinking. Lyra seemed to notice his discomfort. She looked up from her work and gave him a soft, reassuring smile. "They're just hungry," she said, her voice calm and gentle. "They don't understand this world yet. They are still learning." Jack wasn't sure what she meant by that. He had assumed they were her children, but something about her words felt off. He walked toward the children, wanting to understand more. As he got closer, he could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. There was an air of quiet power around them, something unnatural that made him want to back away. The children didn't speak. Instead, one of them, a boy with dark hair and eyes that seemed too deep, stepped forward. His movements were smooth, almost fluid, like he was floating rather than walking. He reached out a hand, and for a moment, Jack froze. His heart pounded in his chest. The boy's hand wasn't warm like a human's, it was cold, like the touch of a stone left out in the winter frost. The child smiled, but it was a strange smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We are hungry," the boy said, his voice soft but unnerving. "Will you help us, human?" Jack found his voice, but it trembled slightly. "Of course," he said. "I'll get you some food, but who are you really? Where are you from?" The boy tilted his head slightly, as if confused by the question. "We are from far away," he said simply, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "But we do not belong here." The words echoed in Jack's mind long after the boy spoke them. We do not belong here. What did that mean? Who were these children really? He looked over at Lyra, who had returned to her work in the field, her back turned to him. She didn't seem worried, but Jack felt a strange sense of fear creeping over him. Before he could say anything more, the boy stepped back, his glowing eyes locking onto his. There was a moment of silence, a stillness that seemed to hang in the air. Then, just as quickly as they had appeared, the children turned and disappeared back into the trees. Moving as silently as shadows, Jack stood there for a moment, stunned. His heart was racing, his mind a whirlwind of confusion. What was going on? Were these children really human? And if not, what were they? His thoughts were interrupted by a voiceless voice, calling from the fields. "Jack," she said, her tone calm but firm. "Don't worry about them. They are learning to adapt. This world is strange to them, but they will understand in time." Jack walked toward her, his steps slow. "I don't understand," he admitted. "These children, Lyra, they're not like any kids I've ever seen. What's going on here? What are you really here for?" Lyra stopped her work and turned to face him. Her expression softened, but there was something in her eyes that Jack couldn't quite place. "You have questions, Jack. I know that, but the answers will come in time. For now, just trust me. I'm here to help. My children are here to learn. This world is very different from ours, and they need time to adjust." Jack didn't know what to say. He wanted to trust her, but every instinct he had told him that something was wrong. The children weren't like normal children, and Lyra, though she appeared kind, seemed to be hiding something from him. As he watched her work the fields, Jack felt a deep sense of unease settle over him. He had promised to help, but now, more than ever, he wondered if he had made the right choice. Something bigger was at play here, something he couldn't yet understand. And as the days passed, the feeling that he was caught in something much deeper, something dangerous, began to grow stronger. Jack wasn't sure what he had gotten himself into, but one thing was clear. His life and the fate of his village would never be the same again. A bargain is made. The next few days passed in a strange blur. The crops on Jack's farm grew faster than ever before. Cornstalks that would normally take weeks to mature now stood tall and full, their golden cobs gleaming in the sunlight. The tomatoes, once small and green, ripened overnight. But despite the abundance of produce, Jack couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was deeply wrong. Lyra worked tirelessly in the fields, her every movement swift and precise. The children, those eerie silent children, had stopped appearing at the edge of the fields during the day, but Jack knew they were there, watching from the shadows. He couldn't help but feel that they were not just children, not in the way humans understood. And every time he looked into Lyra's eyes, he saw something deeper, something ancient and wise, but also burdened by a secret she refused to share. One evening, as Jack stood at the edge of his land, looking at the crops that seemed to defy nature, Lyra approached him again. The golden light of the setting sun bathed her in an almost otherworldly glow. She was different now, no longer just the desperate woman asking for help. She seemed more powerful. "Jack," she said, her voice softer than usual. "We need to talk." Jack turned to her, his heart heavy with the weight of unspoken questions. "What's going on, Lyra? These crops, how are they growing so quickly? This isn't natural. And the children, they're not like any kids I've ever seen." Lyra looked down for a moment, as if considering how much to reveal. Then, with a sigh, she looked back at him. "I owe you an explanation, don't I? You've been kind, but I have kept too many secrets from you." Jack waited, his eyes narrowing with suspicion, but also curiosity. "You said you were from far away. But where exactly are you from, Lyra? And why are you really here?" She hesitated again before stepping closer. Her face was serious now, no trace of the calm, distant mask she usually wore. "I come from a place not of this earth. My people, my children are not human. We were once part of a thriving civilization, but that civilization is no more. Our world is gone, destroyed by war and the very forces that now chase us." Jack's breath caught in his throat. "Destroyed? But how? Why would you come here?" "To Earth?" Lyra nodded, her expression darkening. "Our world was decimated by those who wished to control it. The land we lived on was poisoned, and our people were hunted down like animals. The few of us who survived fled, searching for a safe place, a new home." Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. He wanted to ask more questions, but the raw emotion in Lyra's voice held him back. She had seen things, experienced horrors that he could hardly imagine. "We are refugees, Jack," she continued, her voice low. "But we are also different. My children, though they look human, they are not. They are the product of a long, twisted history of survival. They have abilities, powers that you will never understand, and I have my own reasons for coming." Here, Jack shook his head, still processing what she was saying. "What do you mean, your own reasons?" Lyra's gaze hardened, and for a moment she seemed almost like a different person, cold, calculating. "I didn't just come here to escape. I came here to make sure my people survive. Earth may be our last chance, but we need more than food and shelter. We need protection. And that's where you come in, Jack." Jack's heart raced. "Protection? From who?" "From the ones who are still hunting us," Lyra replied, her voice steady. "I didn't come alone. My people's enemies are close, and they will not stop until they find us. You may think this is just about survival, but it's much more than that. It's about the future of my people and your world." Jack felt his legs go weak beneath him. He had promised to help, but he hadn't known what he was getting into. These weren't just refugees, these were people with powers, with a dark past that they were now dragging into his life. "And what do you want from me?" Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra stepped even closer, her voice dropping too, a near conspiratorial tone. "I need you to help us, Jack. I need you to protect us. You've seen how quickly your crops are growing, how much more fertile your land is now. My children's abilities are tied to the earth, to the life that grows from it. If you help us, we can offer more than just survival. We can make this world better. We can change the course of history." Jack stared at her, trying to make sense of it all. change history. How Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into the small bag she always carried and pulled out an object. It was a smooth, translucent stone, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. She held it out to Jack. "This is a key," she said. "A key to understanding everything. My people possess knowledge and technology that could change the way humans live if you accept the bargain. This stone is a symbol, a promise. If you help us, we will help you. We can offer knowledge, power, even immortality. But you must decide. Time is running out." Jack looked down at the stone in her hand, the glow from it casting strange shadows on his face. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. Was he truly ready to make a deal with these mysterious visitors, these beings from another world? What was the cost of this bargain? And could he really trust them? Lyra seemed to sense his hesitation. "Think carefully, Jack. If you say yes, your life end, your world will never be the same. But if you refuse, you will be putting yourself and everyone you know in danger. The enemies who follow us will stop at nothing to destroy us and you." The silence hung heavy between them, and Jack could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The world around him seemed to disappear, and all that was left was the stone in Lyra's hand and the choice that lay before him. Jack took a deep breath. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. This was a choice that would change everything. "All right," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. "I'll help you, but I need to know everything. No more secrets." Lyra smiled, the faintest glimmer of approval in her eyes. "You won't regret it, Jack, I promise." And so, with a simple decision, Jack's life and the future of Earth was set on a path he couldn't yet see. Secrets revealed the days that followed. The bargain felt like a blur for Jack. Each morning, he woke to find the fields even more abundant than the last, as if Lyra's presence had summoned life into the very soil beneath his feet. The crops flourished with unnatural speed, but the mystery of her origins and the strange nature of the children gnawed at him. Each night, the glow of the stone Lyra had given him rested beside his bed, casting eerie shadows across the room. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching him, waiting for something. Jack had promised to help her, but now, more than ever, he felt that the promise came with a cost, one he couldn't yet understand. It was one of those quiet, peaceful evenings when the tension finally broke. The air was thick with the sound of crickets, and the sky was darkening into shades of purple and gold. Jack sat on the porch of his farmhouse, watching the last remnants of daylight fade behind the hills. When Lyra appeared at his side, her movements as fluid and graceful as ever. "You're restless," she said, her voice low. "I can see it in your eyes. You're starting to understand, Jack, but there's much more you need to know." Jack turned to face her, his heart heavy with questions that had been building up for days. "I don't know what to believe anymore. The crops, your children, that stone, everything feels wrong. It's like I've made a deal with something I can't control." Lyra didn't respond immediately. She gazed into the distance, her face etched with a sadness Jack hadn't seen before. Finally, she sighed and sat down beside him. "There are things I've kept from you, things that I never intended to reveal. But it's time, Jack. You need to know the truth, and you need to understand the risks." Jack shifted, his curiosity piqued. "What are you talking about?" Lyra's voice grew softer, and she glanced at the stone that Jack still held in his hand. "The stone you hold, the power it carries, those aren't from this world. They're not just a symbol, Jack. They are the remnants of my people's greatest creation, the Earth. Jack blinked. The Earthstone. What is that? Lyra hesitated, her eyes clouding with memories of a past long buried. The Earthstone was our key to survival, Jack. It was a powerful artifact created by my people. It harnesses the very energy of the planet itself, its life force, its spirit. It can heal, it can grow, it can even protect. But in the wrong hands, it can destroy. Jack felt a chill settle in his bones. So, it's dangerous. Lyra nodded, her gaze distant. Yes, it was a gift from the ancient gods of my world, given to us as a way to preserve life. But it came with a terrible cost. Over time, my people grew addicted to its power, using it to conquer and control. They used it to manipulate the land, to bend it to their will, until it no longer responded as it should. The Earthstone became a weapon, one that eventually turned against us. Jack swallowed hard. So, you're saying, this stone, it's dangerous? It's not just dangerous, Lyra said, her voice almost a whisper. It's alive. The Earthstone is a living thing. And like all living things, it craves balance. When we abused it, when we tried to control it, it started to break our world apart. The land became poisoned, the skies turned to ash. My people fought wars over it, killed each other for control, and in the end, our civilization fell. Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. He had only wanted to help. He had never asked for any of this. Then why bring it here? He asked, his voice shaking with the weight of her revelation. Why bring this curse to Earth? Lyra looked him directly in the eyes. Because my people are still alive, Jack. There are survivors, and they are hunting us. They want the Earthstone, and they will stop at nothing to take it from you. Jack's blood ran cold. You're telling me they're coming here? To Earth, Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, my people's enemies have tracked us across the stars, and they will destroy this planet to get what they want. The Earthstone can be used to control all life. If they get their hands on it, they will have the power to destroy everything. Earth, your world, will be nothing more than a wasteland. A heavy silence settled between them. Jack looked down at the glowing stone in his hand, suddenly aware of the immense power it held. It wasn't just a tool of survival. It was a weapon, a curse, a key to a fate far beyond anything he could comprehend. I didn't know, Jack whispered. I didn't know what I was getting into. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. You didn't know, but now you do. And now you have a choice, Jack. You can help us protect the Earthstone, or you can walk away. But if you walk away, if you choose to ignore the danger we face, you will be condemning your world to the same fate as mine. Jack felt torn. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. What if he said yes? What if he chose to stand by her, to fight alongside these mysterious visitors? Would he be protecting Earth, or would he be inviting destruction? What happens if I help you? Jack asked, his voice steady but uncertain. Lyra's expression softened. If you help us, we will protect the Earthstone. We will use its power only to defend this world, to heal what has been damaged. We won't make the same mistakes we made before. But we need your help to do it. Together, we can stop the destruction before it begins. Jack stood up, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on his chest. He had no idea what the future held, or if he could even trust Lyra completely. But one thing was certain, the world was changing, and he was standing at the center of it all. All right, Jack said, his voice firm. I'll help you, but we need to be ready. If what you're saying is true, We don't have much time. Lyra smiled, a flicker of hope in her eyes. Thank you, Jack. You've made the right choice. Now, we fight for Earth, and we fight for our future. As Jack looked out at the horizon, the sense of unease that had haunted him since Lyra's arrival grew stronger. The stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined, and the war that was coming would change everything. He had chosen his path, but now he wondered if he was truly prepared for the battle that lay ahead. The hidden truths, the morning after Jack's decision to stand by Lyra, the world felt different. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Jack found himself walking through the fields once again. But this time, his mind was racing, his thoughts tangled in the gravity of the choice he had made. He had pledged to protect the Earthstone, to stand by Lyra and her people, but the weight of his promise was heavier than he had anticipated. The more he learned, the more the world around him seemed to shift, revealing truths he wasn't ready to face. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Lyra approached Jack, her face calm, but her eyes betrayed the strain of the days that had passed. There was no time to waste. The enemies she spoke of were getting closer, and every moment that passed brought them nearer to Earth. I know you have more questions, Lyra said softly, her voice tinged with both relief and sorrow, and I know you need answers. But there's more to this than what I've told you, more than I've allowed myself to say. Jack turned to her, his face lined with frustration and confusion. You've already told me that the Earthstone is dangerous, that there are enemies coming for it. But I still don't understand why it's so important. Why is it tied to your people's survival? And why haven't you been more honest with me? Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as though gathering the strength to reveal what she had kept buried for so long. The Earthstone was never just a tool, Jack. It was the heart of our people, the foundation of everything we built. My ancestors created it, harnessing the power of life itself to build a thriving civilization. It gave us control over nature, over time, over energy. It made us gods in the eyes of our people. Jack stepped back, the weight of her words sinking. In gods, you're saying your people were gods? Lyra nodded, her face etched with both pride and regret. Yes, but like all gods, we became blinded by our power. We became arrogant, believing we could control everything, the land, the seasons, the lives of those around us. And when we misused the Earthstone, when we began to bend nature to our will, the balance was lost. The Earthstone began to corrupt us. It tore our world apart. Jack's stomach churned at the implication. So, your people were destroyed by the very thing that gave them power. That's right, Lyra said, her voice growing tight with emotion. The Earthstone took more than it gave. The energy we harvested from it became a poison, consuming our land, our cities, our very souls. We thought we could escape it, but when the destruction began, it was too late. Our world, once vibrant and full of life, became a wasteland. The Earthstone's power continued to spread, and those who tried to control it, those who fought to possess it, were consumed by it. Jack's mind spun as he processed her words. So, the Earthstone isn't just a source of power, it's a curse. It destroys everything it touches. Lyra's expression softened, and she looked down at the ground, as if weighed down by the enormity of the truth. That's why we fled. The Earthstone was no longer a tool for survival, it became a weapon of mass destruction. And now, I've brought it here, to your world, because Earth is the last chance we have. The enemies who followed us, they want the Earthstone, they want its power, and they won't stop until they have it. Jack's head spun. He had trusted Lyra, but the truth was becoming more complicated with every word. What happens if they get it? What will they do with that power? Lyra's eyes grew darker, her voice low and filled with warning. If they get their hands on the Earthstone, they will use it to control everything. They will subjugate entire worlds, bend civilizations to their will, just as we did. But unlike us, they will have no remorse, no fear of the destruction they cause. They will turn this world into a lifeless, poisoned land, just like ours was. Jack felt a deep, heavy pit form in his stomach. But you said you weren't going to make the same mistakes. That you would protect the Earthstone, Lyra nodded. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that Jack hadn't seen before. We must protect it, Jack. We have no choice. But I'm afraid there are things even I didn't understand until now. The Earthstone, ... It can't just be protected. It's too dangerous to keep in one place. And even if we succeed in keeping it hidden, even if we manage to shield it from the enemies who follow us. ... There's a darker truth that I haven't told you. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. What darker truth? Lyra took a deep breath, her gaze piercing through him as though she was searching for something. The Earthstone feeds on life. It doesn't just bend nature, it takes from it. Every time it's used, every time it's tapped for power, it drains the land around it. If we continue to use it, even in defense of this world, it will eventually destroy everything. I fear that no matter what we do, the Earthstone will never be fully controlled. It will always seek more. And once it has consumed everything, there will be nothing left. Jack's legs felt weak as he absorbed the weight of her words. So, you brought us a curse, not just a tool for survival. Lyra's eyes filled with sorrow. I never meant for it to be this way, but my people were blinded by their own power, and I feared the same thing would happen to us. I was wrong. The Earthstone is not a gift, it is a burden. And now we must find a way to destroy it before it destroys everything. Jack took a step back, trying to process the enormity of what she was saying. The Earthstone, the very thing he had agreed to protect, was a ticking time bomb, capable of undoing everything in its path. But how could they destroy something so powerful, something so deeply connected to the fabric of their world? I don't know if we can destroy it, Lyra said quietly, as though reading his thoughts. But we have to try, for the sake of your world, and for the sake of mine. Jack nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility heavier than ever before. The choice he had made now seemed far more complicated. The battle for the Earthstone wasn't just about protection, it was about survival. And perhaps, in the end, it was about saving the planet from itself. The journey ahead would be more difficult than he could have ever imagined. But one thing was clear: the true fight was only just beginning. A choice must be made. The days were growing shorter, and the air had taken on a chill that Jack hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just the shift in the seasons. There was something else. A growing tension, a sense that time was slipping away, faster than he could comprehend. The urgency of their mission weighed heavily on him, and he found it harder to sleep each night. His dreams were filled with flashes of the Earthstone glowing, pulsing with a power that felt both beautiful and terrifying. Lyra had been more distant lately. She spent most of her time in the fields, her movements slower, more deliberate. Jack could see the strain in her eyes, the burden of the secret she had been forced to reveal. There was no going back now. The truth had come to light, and the path ahead was darker than either of them had anticipated. Jack stood at the edge of the field, staring at the horizon, lost in thought. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the land. He could hear the rustling of leaves, the soft whisper of the wind. Everything seemed so peaceful, so still, but Jack knew better. The calm before the storm was always the most dangerous. As if summoned by his thoughts, Lyra appeared beside him, her silhouette framed by the fading light. She didn't speak at first, just stood there, gazing out at the land she had come to see as both a sanctuary and a prison. "Jack," she said quietly, her voice almost lost in the wind. "The enemies are coming. They've been tracking us for longer than I let on. I've done everything I can to keep us hidden, but it's only a matter of time before they find us." Jack turned to face her, his heart pounding. "How long do we have?" Lyra's face was grim. "A few days, maybe less. The closer they get, the more I can feel the Earthstone calling to them. It's like they know exactly where it is, even from across the stars." Jack swallowed hard. The weight of the situation was suffocating. What do we do now? We can't just run, not with the Earthstone. They'll find it eventually. Lyra nodded. "I've been thinking about that. There's only one option left, one way we can keep the Earthstone safe. But it's a dangerous choice, Jack. One that may not have a return." Jack frowned. "What are you talking about? What choice?" Lyra took a deep breath and looked him squarely in the eyes. "We need to hide the Earthstone, not just from the enemies who follow us, but from the world itself. It's the only way to ensure it doesn't destroy everything. I've been trying to find a place, a location where it can be sealed away forever. Somewhere no one will ever think to look." Jack's mind raced. "You want to hide it, forever. But what if it's found again? What if we can't protect it?" Lyra's expression darkened. "I don't have a choice. If we leave it here, if we let them take it, there will be no future. Earth will be destroyed just like my world. And even if we fight, even if we manage to protect it for a time, the Earthstone will still corrupt us. It's too powerful, Jack. It feeds on the very land it touches. It destroys everything in the end. The only way to keep it from doing more harm is to lock it away for good." Jack's chest tightened. "You're talking about destroying it." "No," Lyra said firmly, her voice unyielding. "I'm talking about sealing it away. It's too powerful to destroy, but it can be hidden safely, far from those who would abuse it. If we do this, we can give the world a chance to heal." Jack's mind was a whirlwind. He had made the decision to help Lyra, to protect the Earthstone, but this was something else entirely. Could he really live with the consequences of hiding away such a powerful object? Was it even possible to lock it away forever? "I don't know if I can make that decision," Jack admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can live with that choice." Lyra's eyes softened, and she stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'm asking you to trust me, Jack. This is the only way. I know it's hard, but sometimes the hardest choices are the ones we must make for the greater good. If we leave the Earthstone here, if we let it fall into the wrong hands, we will all pay the price. I can't promise it will be easy, but this is the only path left." Jack looked out at the horizon, at the fields that had once seemed so peaceful, so full of life. The land was changing, the world was shifting beneath his feet, and he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. But what was the right choice? Was there even such a thing anymore? The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted his thoughts. and Jack turned to see two of the strange children standing at the edge of the field, their eyes glowing faintly in the fading light. They didn't move, didn't speak, but Jack could feel their gaze on him, as though they were silently waiting for his decision. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Jack said, his voice hoarse. "I'm not sure I can carry this burden." Lyra's face softened with understanding. "I know, but you don't have to do it alone. We're in this together, Jack. Whatever happens, we'll face it side by side." Jack looked at her, at the unwavering resolve in her eyes. She had been through so much, had carried the weight of her people's mistakes for longer than he could imagine. And now she was asking him to carry the weight of the Earthstone's fate, to make the hardest decision of all. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know if he was making the right choice, but one thing was clear: he couldn't run from it, not anymore. "I'll do it," Jack said, his voice steady, though his heart was heavy. "I'll help you hide it, but we need to act fast." Lyra smiled, a small flicker of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Jack. You've made the right choice. Together, we'll make sure the Earthstone never harms another soul." The sky grew darker, and Jack knew that this decision would change everything. The battle was far from over, but the choice had been made. Whatever came next, he would face it with Lyra and the strange, mysterious children by his side. The storm was coming, but this time, Jack was ready. The final battle of the night was eerily quiet, the air heavy with anticipation. Jack stood at the edge of the fields, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. The land stretched before him, once a place of simple peace, now a battleground. He could feel the weight of the decision he had made. The Earthstone was hidden, buried deep beneath the earth, in a place no one but him and Lyra would ever be able to find. But hiding it wasn't enough. There were forces out there, forces from Lyra's world that would stop at nothing to uncover its power. The time for hiding was over. It was time to face the enemies who had followed them across the stars. "They're close." Lyra's voice broke through Jack's thoughts, her tone low and filled with urgency. She had been standing just behind him, her eyes scanning the distance, searching for any sign of movement. The air around them felt charged, as though the very earth was holding its breath. Jack turned to her, his heart racing. "How much time do we have?" "They're already here," Lyra said, her voice steady but grim. "They've found our trail, Jack. They'll be here any minute. We need to move quickly." The enemies were no longer just distant shadows. They were here, on Earth, closing in. Jack had seen the signs, the strange lights in the sky, the sudden shifts in the weather, the unsettling whispers of wind that seemed to carry the scent of something foreign, something ominous. It was as if the Earthstone had summoned them, pulling them to this world with a power that couldn't be contained. Jack turned to the small group of villagers who had come together under Lyra's guidance. They had prepared as best they could, fortifying the farm with makeshift barricades, positioning themselves to defend the land. But Jack knew that even with their help, it might not be enough. These weren't ordinary enemies. These were beings who had survived the fall of a civilization, beings who knew how to wield power in ways Jack could hardly comprehend. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, her gaze piercing through him, waiting for a response. Jack nodded slowly, though his heart was heavy. "As ready as I'll ever be." Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes softening just for a moment. "I've seen many battles, Jack. I've fought wars that should have never happened, but this is different. This is our last chance to protect this world." A distant rumble echoed in the sky, and Jack's blood ran cold. The enemies were coming. The first wave arrived before Jack could even brace himself. They came not in ships or machines, but as figures tall, cloaked in dark robes, with eyes that glowed a faint, unnatural light. They moved swiftly, their footsteps silent but deliberate. There were at least a dozen of them, each one carrying the unmistakable aura of power, of something ancient and unstoppable. Jack's hand instinctively went to the knife at his side, but he knew that it wouldn't be enough. They weren't here for a fight, not in the way he understood. They were here for the Earth's, and if they couldn't find it, they would tear the world apart to get what they wanted. Lyra stepped forward, her voice a command as she addressed the group. Defend the perimeter, keep them away from the Earthstone. The villagers nodded, taking their positions, ready to defend their land. But Jack could see the fear in their eyes. They didn't know what these beings were capable of. They didn't know the true cost of what was at stake. The first blast came suddenly, an explosion of force that shook the ground beneath their feet. It wasn't just physical. It was a shock wave that seemed to ripple through the very fabric of reality. Jack stumbled, his vision blurring, as the air itself seemed to twist and distort. Lyra moved quickly, her movements a blur, her hands glowing with an ethereal light. She called upon the Earthstone's power, using it to shield the group. The energy crackled around them, creating a barrier, but Jack could see the strain in her face. Even she couldn't keep this up for long. "They're too strong," Jack shouted, as another wave of energy struck the barrier, making it flicker and weaken. "We can't let them reach the Earthstone." Lyra responded through gritted teeth. "We have to hold them off, no matter the cost." Suddenly, the ground trembled, and Jack turned to see a figure emerging from the trees, a massive, towering creature with skin like metal, its eyes burning with an unnatural intensity. It wasn't one of Lyra's enemies. It was something else, something far worse. "Get back," Lyra screamed, her voice filled with panic. "They found the Earthstone." Jack's heart raced as he realized the truth. The Earthstone had been discovered. The creature, now towering over them, was heading straight for the hidden spot where the stone lay buried beneath the earth. It moved with terrifying speed, its every step shaking the ground. Jack didn't hesitate. He grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her with him as they ran toward the stone's hiding place. The air crackled with energy as they neared the site. They could hear the others fighting behind them, but Jack's mind was focused solely on the Earthstone. If they didn't stop the creature now, it would be the end of everything. The creature was just a few steps away from the hidden location when Jack and Lyra arrived. Jack felt a surge of adrenaline as he reached for the Earthstone, holding it in his hands. The energy from the stone pulsed through him, an overwhelming force that threatened to consume him whole. "You have to stop them, Lyra," Jack shouted, his voice desperate. "I can't do this alone." Lyra closed her eyes, concentrating. She raised her hands toward the sky, and a powerful blast of energy shot from her palms, crashing into the creature with the force of a thunderstorm. The creature staggered back, but it was far from defeated. The battle raged on, but Jack knew what had to be done. He had to destroy the Earthstone, or risk it being used for destruction once again. But the power of the stone fought against him, refusing to let go. The moment he tried to crush it, the Earthstone's energy surged, pushing him back with a force greater than he had ever felt. "Jack, you can't destroy it," Lyra cried out, struggling to hold back the creature. "If you destroy it, it will destroy us all." But Jack wasn't listening. The battle was too far gone, and the Earthstone's power was too dangerous. With a final, desperate push, Jack released all the energy he could. sending the stone deep into the earth, where it would never be found. The moment the earthstone sank into the ground, the creature let out a deafening roar. It staggered back, its form fading away, as if the very life force had been drained from it. The enemies behind them stopped in their tracks. Sensing the loss of their prize, the battle was over. Lyra stood beside Jack, her expression unreadable. "We've won," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Jack looked around at the wreckage, the broken barriers, the signs of the battle they had just fought. "Is it really over?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "For now, but the cost was high, Jack. The Earthstone is gone, hidden away. And with it, the future of this world has been changed forever." As the dust settled and the villagers began to regroup, Jack realized that the fight had not been just for survival, it had been for the very soul of Earth itself. The Earthstone was gone, but its legacy would live on in the choices they had made, in the lives they had saved. The storm had passed. The world was safe. But the true battle won for balance, for peace, was only just beginning.